LoreWarrior Online. THG-10E Thug. Overview. Originally created exclusively for the Star League Defense Force, the Thug was designed by the Maltex Corporation to compete with and replace the aging Warhammer. Designers attempted to retain the strongest points of the older machine while avoiding its pitfalls. It was well received when unveiled in 2572, and to keep up with demand, Maltex licensed Earthworks Incorporated to run a separate production line. Capabilities. Since it was intended to be a replacement for the Warhammer, the Thug has very similar weapons and capabilities. A pair of particle projection cannons cooled by 19 heatsinks allows the design to remain relatively cool while bombarding the enemy from range. When enemies do attempt to close underneath the cannon's minimum range, the design retaliates with a pair of Holly SRM-4 racks. The Thug's devastating physical attacks make it even more fearsome. The one drawback of this configuration is that the secondary weapons are ammunition-based, and if a lucky blow hits the bays, the Battlemech would be at best crippled. As a side note, the original 11E had more advanced ammunition bays, vastly safer than the standard ones seen up until the clan invasion. The largest selling points for a Thug, even a downgraded one, was that it carried almost 50% more armour than the Warhammer, and had operating hand actuators, a feature that iconic frontline battlemechs like the Warhammer and Marauder lacked. For units designed for raiding, which would become an absolute necessity during the latter half of the Succession Wars, these were more important than anything else to mechs assigned to such missions. Deployment. The Thug, despite being formidable, was never able to replace the Warhammer. The Succession Wars destroyed Maltex's single production line, leaving Earthworks' Keystone line to produce about a dozen Thugs a year until the technological renaissance would allow the line to go back to the original 11E variant. Ironically, it was the Warhammer that allowed the Thug to survive the Succession Wars. The original Tigart PPCs were no longer available for the Thug, so Earthworks began extensively modifying the design to utilize the massive Warhammer spare parts stockpiles. Once these field refits could be done successfully, Earthworks retooled their line to produce the new assault machines with Donal PPCs, which sustained Thug production and enabled existing machines to be repaired and rebuilt more easily. Elements of Hansen's Rough Riders raided Dela Cruz in 3038 when the mercenary unit was loaned out to the Federated Sons side of the newly formed Commonwealth. The mission started off badly when one of their mech warriors deserted to have a duel with a mech warrior from the famous Sorensen Sabres and subsequently lost her life. However, the Rough Riders had a pair of Thugs, and these two mechs were credited with single-handedly holding off an entire company of defending Kurita units, while the rest of the raiders emptied a supply warehouse for spare parts and ammunition. The Rough Riders razed the facility and successfully retreated off-world. Variants. Unwilling to tamper with success, Earthworks produced no variants of the 10E Thug until well after the War of 3039. Notable mech warriors. Buso Senshi Karl Kakashi. A member of the 11th Ghost Regiment, Kakashi saw heavy fighting on Matar during the War of 3039. While on the defensive in the Tri-Cities, Kakashi became isolated during a push by the 1st Kestrel Grenadiers to take the urban sprawl. Moving block by block, avoiding enemy units as best she could, her Thug's armour was slowly whittled away by the occasional enemy stumbling into a line of fire. Her armour stripped, missile bays empty and running hot, Kakashi believes herself dead when surrounded by a lance of relatively fresh heavy battlemechs. Fortunately, her company mates had made a last-minute intervention with their Star League-era Highlanders, leaping out from behind buildings and landing on two of her attackers, crushing them immediately. As the other two Grenadiers withdrew, they found their retreat cut off by other Thugs and King Crabs. This chase and rescue would later be considered the offensive push that led to the 1st Grenadiers pulling out of the city. Now, Chuai, Kakashi believes she wouldn't have made it out alive if she'd been in any other class of Battlemech. Mech warrior Sonny Berkshire. A member of the 3rd Seti Hussars, Berkshire was able to salvage a Kuritan Thug during the fighting on Rochester. He's still rebuilding it, using whatever experimental technologies available he can acquire in an attempt to recreate the Star League era version.